Hi everyone. Ni hao, bonjour to the online world. Perhaps we'll be discussing about the landscape which we left yesterday, and we are going to write the code on top of it. I'll put myself on mute. If you have any questions, you can definitely ask about the same. And it's kind of a internal pilot program which we need to perform right now, so that we are able to get some data sets which can be utilized to tackle the sustainable development problems, which is a reality right now. So I'm putting myself on mute, and then we'll start a discussion. Okay, we are going to discuss a framework. Perhaps I'm just retrieving the data, the framework we need to discuss. Particularly, we will be looking into the outer space right now in terms of what landscape can be done in terms of coding. So first of all, we are going to talk about the classifications here. So we are going to talk about it in terms of the gaming interface, and perhaps few of the classifications are very important, and I'll talk about it and then we'll get into the stuff, because although I wanted to discuss the outer space stuff, but the data set in front of me is not up to the mark. I have to work a little bit more on that. But something I have with me right now is I'm just going to discuss that. So the first classification is G6Q30/08. So null here stands for 0, and this is basically auction. Now when we talk about NFTs, for the NFT sector to be understood in a manner, anything which is in limited quantity, that can be converted into kind of an NFT. However, the understanding of NFT is still very less as compared to what should be understood and how it should be deployed, and particularly after 2020, most of the folks don't even understand NFTs. So for the auctioning, we have to look into the data set of G6Q30/08. That is one point. Now the second thing is to run any of the online enterprises, whether it's an app model or whatever we are doing onto the portal. The way the business has to be run is by running advertisement at the back end. Many a times it's a collaboration, so even this whole understanding of new business method, which is around influencers and branding, rebranding, at the end of the day, it is the online advertisement. So this is under the section head of 6Q30/0277, which is online advertisement. Now let's talk about, when we talk about the gaming interface, one of the pivotal classification tagging is A63F2300/575. This is basically featuring the games which is using electricity for generating the display, having 2 or more dimensions. So here we can go into the augmented reality also, which can be broadcasted on a screen, which is to do something with the television, because that itself has gained a lot of momentum. Loads of technologies are not known to the public, neither to the stakeholders, and I want to keep it as a trade secret right now. Showing representation related to the gaming sector, which is characterized or which is including the details of the game servers, details of the game services which is offered to the candidate for trading the virtual items. Now, what has been done in the recent past in the name of NFTs, anything and everything has been converted into virtual stuff. Even a simple painting which is pixel created, you go to OpenSea, it's an open source. It is also like you can obviously put some gas fees in it, all that nuances. But in a simple way, anything which is pixelated can be sold as an NFT. In this particular, another dimension which I want to add here is, so we look at A63F2300/00, 50 and 57. That will suffice the purpose. Now, a very interesting stuff which is I want to introduce today is, actually I should write it down before I get into the other stuff. We are going to define this word foder, or perhaps it's a kind of cooking virtually, which is virtual cooking. So this particular very interesting and very fascinating way of preparing something is A63F2300/8094. So basically the landscape of the same is into the economics and the management. Let's look into the framework here. So there's a I like to call it as a candidate. Let's take candidate interface. Now what is happening? When the candidate is given the UI is showing a couple of things. Now in this particular case, you have the mapping and the blending function, which also includes, so mapping and the blending function is an integration of the auction characteristics or the parameters, plus it includes the events also. And we have user interface characteristics, that is particularly the social understanding of the candidate in the online world, which can be false, which is pass or fail. So it is always, if I have to give the first layer, I will always give it a false, because the candidate needs to prove that the candidate has to travel from one terminal to the second terminal to pass the same. So we take failure as the one of the layers, which is kind of a core layer, and on that top of it we give exercises, provide exercises, so that the KYC can be done at different instances. I'll give you one example. I just did KYC with PayPal. Now PayPal, what are they doing, which is better than right now LinkedIn and whatever the word nomenclature people like to use, is I'm still not able to verify myself as my true identity on the world's biggest platform, which is one of the most paramount platforms right now, which is LinkedIn. People give different pronunciation of this word. Now when I do the DigiLocker stuff with that interface, somehow there's some disintegration and it doesn't go through. Now with the human intervention, which PayPal is doing, which is really good, and that is what I would like to suggest LinkedIn also, that they need to have human intervention. You cannot automate everything, because one of the things which is very paramount is, even you're using technology, you have to give employment to the people, maybe at a minuscule level, but employment has to be there. Now in this particular case, a very simple thing was DigiLocker done with the Aadhaar card, which is India based. At the second level, connecting with somebody at the business process outsourcing, that's the BPO unit, where there's a person. The person is taking the photograph, point number one. Point number two, the person is looking at the original, whatever the data set is. In this particular case was the PAN card number, so I had to show the original PAN card number, and the KYC is done. So we need to have these different protocols for verifying the identity of the person. Like for me also, I have zillion identities in the online world. Few are very open, few are very closed, and even these people who are having this discussion, whatever the chats are being going, these are nothing but codes, because these are not real people. So the point of contention here is, when you are doing an online auction, there has to be loads of layers so that the auction itself is good enough and there is a real transaction, because then only everybody gets the piece of the pie. Now in this mapping and blending function, there is real world live auction interface, which is, say for example, today I'm going to an auction place just to see how it works. So it's an integration of online and offline world, which is hybrid. And then we have real world auction. Let me see, next is also the same. In this particular case, it's a very simple, I mean, any hardware is going to have a processor, memory, video adapter, sound system, network interface, device interface, and we have the third-party system. So there is no admin. As I said, there is no admin, there is no master, there is no slave. So this is kind of a private ledger, because people who have the link, the web domain link, which the HTTP, would be able to log in with, again, KYC. You cannot allow anyone and everyone to be part of it. That is very, very important. And you have a server. So if I just go by the stuff, virtual auction is there, receive data from, now the data has been received from the real world auction, so that is being inputted because today I'm part of this auction system which is happening. So probably, everything is documented. There's, I have a QR card which is nothing but the quick response card, and then probably I'll see how it works today. But I'm really keen to look into the impact of the auction system of the offline world and the online world, and how we can bring back the virtual stuff in intersection of the online and the offline world. That being said, so you receive the data from the real world auction, you receive bid from the candidate in the virtual auction space, so there can be a comparison, and this can cater 140 plus countries at any given point of time. Or rather, I was just going through one of the data sets, and it was a very interesting data set because I have to go back and do proper research just to give it a confirmation where it states that it's 210, not 140 plus or 180 plus countries, because these small islands which are tribes who are not online also, they're also part of the living habitat of the food chain. And then in this particular case, bid is presented to the real world auction, receive bid response from real world auction, present bid response to the candidate. Okay, this is being done. So let's just deep dive into this. I'll just discuss this, then I'll just get back to my normal work. So the word of the day is foder. Okay, so in this particular module, we have 3 sub-levels. The first level is auction logic is 100% intact, and you have to read the paper which I have written for the AI stuff, philanthropy. You can just go online, Perplexity, look into it, you will get the link, read it. Every time you're going to read it, you will get a new information. That's how it has been written. So yeah, it's kind of a loop, so it's a good thing. In this particular case, okay, very interesting. So there's a lot of discussion right now around TikTok. Identify the donor application. So donor-donee concept is being deployed here. Whose user interface is being mimicked. Extract the signature items, which is color palette, typography, motion, curves, etc. And auction is based on place bid, donor, tap, donor donee kind of stuff. Then there's auction, play the auction. How the auction is played, the bidder does not consciously think I'm in the auction, which is quite different. The mechanics are hidden inside the donor app primary loop. Keep the auction engine running on the server, but remove every classic auction queue from the client. Replace them with donor app native interaction. Say for example, it's a racer game, F1 for example. Each bid is like a nitro boost, and the leaderboard is race position. And like people who have played Mario, you get those points, so here you get gems. So gems is kind of a diamond and all, because diamond in the offline world has lost its value, because we are in a place where, because of the SGDs, stones don't hold any value whatsoever. Highest bidder player with the biggest cascade. So again, how you define the word cascade, that's a question you need to answer as a stakeholder. Map auction events to real-time game events via a thin translation layer and see how it's working. I mean, what is the hypothesis in terms of what was orchestrated in the offline world and how it is mimicking the online world. And your people have to work, I mean real work. It cannot be done only by coding, because once you understand the nuances of the difference between the offline world and the online world, and to simplify the chaos, it has to be done where, you know, both comes in synchronicity or is balanced out. Level 3 is auction based new game, and the goal is the product is not skinned auctioned, it is a brand new game genre whose internal economy happens to be auction powered, so no live external auction is consulted. A loop is designed that is fun even if the player never realizes the auction underneath. Say for example, collecting and evolving creatures. Then you have a treasure hunt. I mean, I love treasure hunts. I think that's one way of creating MVP and the marketing stunt. Cadbury is doing quite well. On the contrary, Coca-Cola is misusing the data set, because even if they're stating that you can use the code, they have already coded it. So at the back end, they are playing a game which is against the ethos of the law of the country. And then obviously India can refute and look into it why that is happening, because if the codes are given, either the code should not be utilized, and once the candidate is not been drinking it, but they are coding it at the back end because of the illusion that the candidates in India don't understand when they read the labels. So human sensitization again is very important here. Okay, so I think we are good with this. So the word of the day is foder. Let's work on that and see the understanding of virtual cooking. And virtual cooking is like, I mean, when you just imagine the impact it will have of the virtual cooking with the real life cooking, because right now everybody's putting too much salt into food. I don't know for what reason. But if the virtual cooking and the real time cooking can be embraced, it will create a greater impact. Because food is one of the major source, or it is needed for the survival of any of the categories of the candidates. So this is one way of understanding auctioning in terms of NFTs, but it's going really. I think this is going to work. Perhaps this is going to work. So I think we already have our MVPs. It's just that I'm not launching it for the public right now, because the stakeholders are not very convinced to launch it for the public as such. But yes, internally we are training the models, and that is one reason I'm getting a lot of DMs on LinkedIn where I'm being so there is one kind of work which is consultancy. Consultancy is basically at the other end of the spectrum. It's kind of a KYC where they want to understand how the intelligence can be utilized. But let me tell you, here the candidates have to be identified. We cannot be saying that AI is being developed, but who were the people who developed the AI? That's the very pivotal question which needs to be answered. If they don't have knowledge, if they don't have any understanding, and they are just creating synthetic data set, that AI would be futile for developing any of the models. So yeah, that is something I wanted to discuss. Thank you for watching this out. Have a great day ahead. DMs are pouring in. Thank you for so much love. However, it is not, I would say you cannot be serving everyone. The power to say no is more important given the scheme of things which is happening in the world right now. So enjoy that.